Hello, everyone, and welcome to Can I Be Blunt, where I chat with sex workers and members of the BDSM community about femdom, DS relationships, online sex work, and more. I am Mistress Danielle Blunt, and I'm a sex worker, a dominatrix, specializing in mommy play and psychological domination. I'm also a public health researcher, photographer, hard leather femme, and all-around pervert who loves boots. And today I am joined by Kat Gold, and I would love if you could introduce yourself, Kat.
I am a hairy hooker. I am a mommy dom. I'm a photographer, a pornographer, a leather dyke. I wear many hats, and I'm based in Philly, but I often travel to New York and Chicago, Boston, SF. Those are my main places that you can find me.
Amazing. I I feel like I always love chatting with you because I find out that we have more and more similarities. When I was like peeking at your gorgeous website last night and realizing like, oh, like we're both hairy Jewish femmes with hard mommy vibes, hard like leather mommy vibes, backgrounds in filmmaking and photography. And I was like, oh, like you're also a Leo, which I'm also a Leo. And I was just
Right.
like, ooh, like the power we have. So I'm super excited to chat with you today about everything from leather to art, queerness to what you're talking about being a hairy hooker, like love a full bush and have one as well. And I think that just your content is so gorgeous, and like your filmmaking background is feels so present in all that you share. And I love when that's able to translate in how and what people are putting out there. There was this one line on your website that I really liked that was talking about how you've made pleasure your life's pursuit, and both having alliteration and just being like a lovely sentiment. I'm curious, like as a fellow hedonist, how you've devoted your life to pursuing pleasure and like what you've learned from it, what you've gleaned from it, how you apply it to your work and to your art making practice and your
I think for me, when thinking about hedonism, a huge thing is intensity, having a level of intensity. And that goes for both my personal life and my work. And so, yeah, it seems like it would just be a natural part of what comes up in sessions with me because, I'm really drawn to um, seeing people access different parts of themselves through a scene, whether that be like an intense BDSM scene or a more vanilla session that has just like more emotional elements involved. Um, but yeah, I love witnessing people in that like really transformative space, and so that does bring that brings a deeper connection and level of intimacy and intensity to the experience that I really enjoy.
I love how you talk about intensity, and I think it is like a certain level of hedonism when you're like pleasure and as intense as we can go. Like and like something that I think a lot about in my play is like plumbing the depths of like how can we go deeper, like what is holding us back from going deeper, like what like on a societal level in like between us in an interpersonal way and like our previous histories. And I also really love that space of being able to hold that space for people, and like allowing them to surrender. And I also think it's something that like as mommy doms, like from what I'm hearing you talk about, like it's like this very natural state for you to like hold space for someone to navigate these intensities. And I think for mommy doms, I wonder too if it's a little bit more natural to be able to hold space like that and explore and like allow that vulnerability to kind of like unfold and create space um for transformation or just like a really fucking good a good time. Not everything needs to be transformative. I one thing that I'm interested in I think So I feel like we have a lot in common in our work histories and interests. And I know that for me, I kind of I started in this like old guard leather house training to be a dominatrix who's never penetrated, blah blah blah, hard leather, like impenetrable, and that you don't touch me, like whatever. Very old guard style of leather training. And when I moved into sex work, I was more strictly professional domination. And in my personal life, I was like using all of my like boyfriends as human dildos and like doing like all of these different things. And I'm like, why is this like archetype of a dom limiting what I'm allowing myself to explore in my work? And I feel like from hearing a little bit about your work history, it kind of went from, well, maybe you can talk a little bit about it too. I would love to hear a little bit about that
Yeah,
transition because from my understanding, it's a little opposite, and I'm curious about that.
it totally is. Yeah. I did not brand as mommy dom first entered um when I first started escorting in the way that I do now. Um yeah, I was definitely more GFE, still kind of like alternative, hairy and tattooed, um, but kind of like strictly, um, I wasn't branding as dominant. And yeah, I think that this switch happened for me. There's no like real moment, but it definitely just aligned with my interests as they started evolving. Um, and as I started gaining more experience. I think that was the biggest thing for me, is that I wanted, if I was going to brand as a dominant, I wanted to feel really confident in my skills and in my experience and training. And um, so that kind of happened over time. Like, the longer I was in the industry and the longer I had more of an interest, I started branding as more sensually dominant, which is really how it is now, in this mommy dom way. Um, and yeah, it feels just like really aligned with my both my interests and my what I'm best at. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. I think for me too, it was like a matter of figuring out, and also for me, like unpacking some of the horror phobia that was kind of ingrained in me in my like classic dom training, as well as being thinking about like my own dominance and like what I want and like what I like about sex, and like also like what where my skill sets are in this like this realm of like sensual domination. And um yeah, I mean, the mommy dom is such a powerful archetype. I would be so curious to hear you talk about like your style of mommy dom, how you found like how you found mommy mommy doming to like feel like something being really resonant for you, and how you would describe like your style of mommy or style of domination.
So my style is definitely very like playful, nurturing, loving, um very very instruction oriented. I love to guide and teach. I love to um I love to corrupt. I love people. I love virgins. I love people who come to me with like, I don't know what I'm doing and I really need you to teach me everything about life, about sex, about, and yeah, that's really exciting to me because I love having that kind of power. Um, but uh I'm not the like super mean, super firm. I'm like much more um what's the word? I like using the word cougar, I, in um along with mommy dom for myself in particular, because it's much more like predatory and creepy and like and less like um I'm gonna come home and punish you. It's not, that's not my style. It's much more like, um, I'm going to use you for my pleasure. I'm going to teach you everything you ever needed to know about pleasure, about your body. And yeah, so the other part of your question, how did I come to like this? That was the question? Yeah. I was playing with mommies and daddies, but mommies in particular as like a little for a bit of time. And have just always been attracted to like hot older women, like who isn't kind of. I guess there are people who are not, but like I just think hot older femmes are everything. And yeah, and especially like I think it has aligned with like often those people were also other sex workers. They were often like really confident, and I was always drawn to people who were like really comfortable in their sexuality, who were older, who were wiser. And so yeah, a lot of those people, the people that I was playing with as mommies were other sex workers who I admired. And I think that kind of naturally lent itself to be like, oh, one day when you grow up, you too will become a mommy. So
I
I kind of,
love
it's like a, yeah, it's kind of like I was groomed in the best way possible.
I can't imagine a better way of being groomed, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, it was like initiated into mommy by like hot older sex worker femmes. Like, what more could you ask for in this life?
Totally, it makes sense because it's like, yeah, that's my style as well. Someone being like, come here, come under my wing, I'm gonna teach you, I'm gonna use you, and you then will become me. Like it's kind of this like,
I love that.
yeah.
It's such a excellent style of parenting to be so instructive. I love hearing you describe yourself as a cougar because what comes across very, very strongly. And I feel like it's kind of like from what I like pick up from like your branding and the content that you put out there is very much like I'm I'm on the hunt, you're my prey, but you're gonna come out of this with like a skill set that will leave you so much better off. Kind of like like destroyed in some way, but like for the best.
Yeah, it's kind of like you will leave feeling like totally like shattered and anew, like you're
Yes.
gonna be yeah,
Rebirth.
yeah,
Reborn.
yeah, and that is kind of the mommy thing, is that like it's gonna sink in a lot deeper than I guess like a normal session might. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious what you're around that, in terms of like why, if you feel this way, like mommy dom sessions are like hit very differently, like how they then
Yeah. They
also create this like lasting impact that forms a bond and like is ongoing. And yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so much about mommy play that I find so fascinating. I think I have maybe a more passive seduction style than a cougar, I would say. Maybe more like a spider spinning a web and like when they come to me, they come and it can be like very gentle. I'm also not like a particularly mean mommy, I don't think. Because I don't reward negative behavior in my style of parenting. I've learned this from dog training, not to reward negative behavior. And I think that so for me it's also like very instructive and like wanting you to do your best and like encouraging growth. While also I think there's a darker side to some of the mommy stuff that I do. I really, really love like intense taboo mommy play, and like I always say, like, no one can fuck you up like your mother. And I think that the reason that daddy play is so popular is because mommy play can be so much more intense. um of course, I think it like depends on like everyone's like perspectives and experiences, but this is what I found, is that things tend to come up in mommy play that people who have been playing with daddies, it just never came up, because I think just like how we're conditioned and our attunement in Western society to be towards like a largely singular maternal figure, whether that person was there or not for you, um, the way that attachment comes into play and those dynamics can be so intense. And I think it honestly took me like a while of doing mommy play to really understand that. I feel like I would have some like patterns coming up, and some like attachment issues where I'm just like, whoa, like I'm not a therapist, like I don't know how to navigate this. And actually, part of what started this series is I started interviewing therapist friends of mine about attachment and attunement and transference, because I really felt like I was missing some of I don't think like sex workers are therapists. I think some of the tools that therapists have to navigate like boundaries within client relationships can be really helpful. And so I was interviewing friends of mine and hosting educational classes for sex workers, and like learning more about like transference and attunement. And my background's also in psychology. And I find it can be so potent, but also bring up so much. And so I think for me, I've definitely learned to kind of like choose better who to go as far with, and when is something that I've definitely learned over like the 15 years of doing this work, and more like probably like 10 years of doing mommy play. But I think that depth and like that intensity that you were talking about in the beginning with your hedonism is something that I'm so interested in the mommy space. And there's something about like, I think like the structure of a session is kind of like set up for the potentiality of a really beautiful attunement space of like, right, like no one's phones are on, like I'm monotasking on you, you are monotasking on me, all of your attention is on mommy, all you have to do is what mommy says, like you just have to listen to every word that I say and you don't have to think about anything else. And I think that type of monotasking is really, really profound, and that type of attention that you can like give and receive, that is unlike anything else that I've experienced.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like that also applies to like, yeah, just the beauty of a container of a session in general for any type of experience, but especially for mommy play, I feel like it's even more heightened because people have a lot of stuff that they're coming with. That may not always be the case, but it can be the case, and yeah, it can allow you to like really go places when there's that type of like supportive environment and container for it.
I've seen so much transformation in the people that I've seen. And like you had mentioned like the ability to develop these like longer term relationships. And I think there's like opportunities for repatterning experiences. And like I had an experience with a client where um I like read her a book, and she didn't have that experience in her childhood. And I think like it was just like a really like moving experience for both of us to be able to like to share that together. And I'm curious, like thinking about transformation and mommy doms, like what your experience has been like guiding people on kind of mommy dom journeys, and like what you've seen.
Yeah, so I just also want to say that a lot, like, I think majority of my mommy dom sessions are people coming to me being like, I like really focused on the taboo of it, and like
Mm.
like are coming with a lot of shame and are like, is it okay to call you mommy? Like I have this desire and I don't really know about it. Um, and then there's that, and then there's just like people want this like intense role play that doesn't have much of the like we're really moving through these emotional pieces. But then so the ones that are really emotionally focused are like few and far between for me, but they are profound when they are there. And yeah, I feel like people, it's mostly, I find that people want to be the experience of like being held and specifically
Yeah.
sucking on my tits. Like those two,
Life's two true
um,
purposes.
those really hit home for people a lot of the time. Um, Especially when they're done in like a way that's maybe not focused so sexually, you know? It's kind of like this is an aftercare thing that's just comforting for you, you know? Like and yeah, it really takes people to back like back in time. Because it is so soothing to be sucking on titties. Like it's this very soothing thing. But yeah, I feel like I got sidetracked a bit.
I mean, I got sidetracked a bit too. And you just talk about sucking on titties, and I'm gone. Um, it's so interesting too because I feel like I rarely get the people who are like, is I have always wanted to call a woman mommy and feel really shameful about it. I get a lot of people who call me mistress and then like 3 months later are like, can I call you mommy? And I'm sure it like also has a lot to do with branding and some of my like older guard, like hard dom
Yeah.
background and like me just pulling them
Mhm.
into my mommy web. But I love talking to other mommy doms because especially other like mommy dom workers because I feel like the experiences are just so like radically different. Like there's so many things that like we can relate to about like what comes up in our work, but I'm always interested in how people's branding brings in like different types of like littles or submissives and like what their interests are and like what people are being approached about.
Yeah, so I'm very blessed that I've had I do have a lot of people come to me who are queer and other providers themselves. Yeah, it's been really special. It's always every time I'm like feel really honored about it. And yeah, I feel like that is definitely in part because I brand really, I'm pretty shameless about my like being very gay, you know, like attracted to a lot of different people. I'm pretty shameless about my interests sexually, a lot of which happen to be also very gay. Like all the I love fisting, you know, like it's just yeah, I'm like honored every time I get an inquiry, and I'm also like, yes, this is because I am promoting what I'm into and the people are listening. Like, you know. Um so yeah, it's been wonderful. You know, I think that um yeah, I feel like being chosen by a provider to offer an experience is like delightful to me because I love we work so hard, and we a lot of times are maybe not as connected to our own pleasure for a variety of reasons. And so to be able to like, I think a lot of the workers that I've seen have expressed that to a certain degree, that they feel out of touch with they feel either sexually exhausted, out of touch with their own desires, or just like aren't getting what they need in their personal life because of their work. And so, yeah, I feel like being able to see people and like get to the heart of what they need and then offer that to them in the ways that I can is amazing.
Yeah, I think it's so like it's so it's so true. And I think I'm thinking how it's true for like many clients, like having the space to like pursue your own desire is such like a radical and rare space that you can like carve out in the world for yourself. And like especially as someone who is providing these services, I think I know like that when I've hired sex workers in the past, it's been like really cathartic to be like, this is like specifically what I this is what I want, and like I don't have to like navigate the complexities of like pickup play that I'm not interested in navigating right now, or like I don't have to necessarily like navigate like the intimacy of like ongoing relationship in order to, you know, like I like trust you, I like know like you're good at what you do. And like the container, like I think it comes back to that container being like really helpful in finding that. And I think the container that we're able to provide for people is just such a powerful space. And I think I think it's so rare in society to be able to carve out that space for yourself. And I know like I talk to people a lot. A lot of people tell me that they like look at my website for months and then fill out my contact form. And I think like that process of like sitting down and like writing out what your desires are can be really overwhelming, but it can also be such a cathartic effort of like actually getting it down, sharing it with someone else, like taking the steps to like turn it into a reality. Um, and yeah, like you truly are very blessed, and I totally get why you get all of those inquiries. I think like both like branding the mommy dom thing and just like um yeah, it's magic.
Thank you.
um I also I feel like I'm curious. I feel like you introduce yourself as a hairy hooker, so I feel like maybe we should end with being hairy hookers. I would love to hear a little bit about your relationship to your body hair, as well as like your lover's relationship to your body hair, and like how you use that in scenes. I know like as a fairly hairy person myself, like I love like bush worship and scent play and armpit play, but I'm curious like how you integrate that into your like what you see in people approaching you who are like, ooh, yes, hairy, and how you play with that in your style of dominance.
Yeah, so almost everybody who sees me, minus maybe like a handful of people who are maybe indifferent about it, um, everybody else who's the majority who sees me comes to me because I am hairy. In addition to all the other things that I bring, but like a lot of them are hairy fetishes, which is wonderful because I love being hairy. And um, yeah, I've just, for so many reasons, but I'm attracted to body hair. I think it's super sexy. It's also just low maintenance. I don't like it would be hell for me personally to be shaving all the time. Um, I enjoy playing with my own body hair and I love having my body hair worshipped. Yeah, it's just another form of like reverence for me. It's like, yeah, you, you love every part of me and it's like why wouldn't, yeah, especially like my leg hair too, like the parts of me that like maybe aren't, you know, everybody loves a bush, well not everybody but like a lot of people love a bush, but like leg hair, I think it's like people, you got to really be down with the body hair to like worship leg hair. And I think it's special that yeah, like all of my clients are like really very into it.
That's really cool. I love what you say about like worshiping like every part of you feels like a very mommy dom relationship to body hair too. It's like, of course, like why wouldn't you like this like worship every inch, like head to toe, hair to hair? And I'm curious.
I
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that this comes up a lot too when like, yeah, I don't know, I'll have clients who are like, um, oh yeah, I'm into body hair, I'm into all these things, but not feet, or like not something else. Like they'll have like one or two things that they're like, but not that thing. And I'm kind of like, why wouldn't you? Like the human body is beautiful, especially mine. like you
Like white hetero spaces, I feel like no body hair is the like beauty standard. And so I'm curious when people are approaching you for being like such a hairy babe and like fetishizing that, like do you see like shame coming up? Like what is it that people are kind of like working through? Like what do you see people working through when they're like, "Oh, like I love your bush, but like could you just like maybe shave your legs?" Like I'm sure like I'm just making Twitter comments right now, but like
yeah,
I'm curious. Yeah, that.
yeah. I I do feel very lucky that most of the people coming to me are we're on the same page about like they're kind of like, why, I don't know why the trends have shifted. Like I've always loved a woman with body hair. um and yeah, they find that it's like hard to come by. They're like very appreciative because it's not the norm. And yeah, for other, but then also sometimes with that too, they're kind of like really putting down then women who shave, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, just let people, like, what's the problem, like it's not, I like body hair, but like, yeah, just because you like a full bush doesn't mean that like a woman who decides to shave is like, um
Yeah, I hate the
you know
comparison. I'm like, you don't like to like elevate me, you don't need to like bring anyone else down, even if
yes,
it's your preference.
totally.
Like, I find that
Yeah,
very
yeah.
unsexy when people do that. I have huge turn off.
I I totally agree. Yeah. I'm kind of like, yes, tell me how much you appreciate my body hair and let's leave it at that. Like what, like that's wonderful. Um but yeah, as far as people who are like, "Oh, I love your bush but maybe not your legs." I did have a client once request that I wear knee socks because he didn't like my leg hair but loved the bush, and I was like, well, knee socks are super sexy, first of all, but not in this case. Like I
Yeah,
on any other occasion
you ruined
I
knee
would be
socks for me.
thrilled to wear knee socks.
Yeah.
um I love a knee sock, but not because you can't handle my leg hair, and then at the end of the session, because I was like, no, you either see me or you don't. You see me, all of me as I am. Plenty of other people you can go to. And he ended up wanting to see me. And then he was like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the leg hair. Like after seeing me, and I'm kind of like, just relax. Like, like people have these things that they like think that they don't like or won't like without even trying to experience them. um and then once they do, it's like there's no, yeah, they're kind of like rethinking that, which is cool to see.
Yeah, I love the like both the rethinking of it of like, oh, like I thought that this might be a turn off for me, but actually it wasn't. And the like, I thought this was going to be a turn off for me, but actually, like, this is all I can think about now. The like implantation
Yeah,
of fetish too, I feel like is so like mommy doming is so rife for that, right? Because you're like you're imprinting and like you like what mommy likes, you want to do what mommy does, you love everything about mommy from like head to toe, and so like this is your mommy is your ideal woman. This is what you worship. And I just,
yeah.
I love
The
that.
case with the mommy dom thing in particular, it's kind of like, you say you don't like feet, but you are going to suck on my toes. Like,
Right.
like, um, and of course, unless it's like a really hard boundary, but like if it's something that they just are saying that they don't like, it's kind of like, yeah, that same thing. I really like kind of being like, well, these are you're gonna learn to like it, because I
Exactly.
like it, and so that's the whole point here. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something there too about like the prioritization of pleasure and both like right like for me I think it's about finding like clients and submissives where like right like yes like I am providing a service, I'm like holding a space for a very specific experience, but like that is an experience of you encountering a dominant person whose desire and pleasures are like at the forefront of the experience. And I think for me, like that's always when I feel the most powerful. And that's like always when the like scenes go the best is like when there is that ability to, right? It's like I like to say like I'm not interested in your pleasure. I'm interested in my own. And like of course like I'm interested in the things that would bring you pleasure so that I know what to do with them so that I can like wield it as like a form of like power and control and to like facilitate surrender. But I really really vibe with people who are interested in that power exchange and like hearing you talk about it is like, well, you might not like feet, but like mommy does. So like this is what you're gonna do is like a very hot and like powerful dynamic and very persuasive, I think.
Definitely. And also just getting more information like, well, why don't you like feet? Why? You know? Like, what? And then a lot of times people don't have a good answer. I'm kind of like, they, like, it's not strong enough argument for me. Yeah.
Yeah, not very persuasive. I'm curious if you have like any mommy dom scene dreams that you would want to share or have been like thinking about.
Oh, hmm.
I can think of one too. We can do like a little manifestation or something. Like the mommy dom
Yeah,
dreams.
yeah. I love I do love like I love a family vibe. I love the more kind of the more the merrier. Yeah, I'm like really into mommy daddy co-topping. Really into mommy co-topping. Um, but yeah, I like haven't felt as creative recently. That comes in waves for me, in terms of like
Totally.
when I feel really inspired um, for scenes, and I think at this moment in time, I'm like in a bit of a lull in that way. But if you have any,
You actually inspired
yes,
me. You inspired me in this chat with like I'm thinking now of like a lesbian mommy sorority inducting a new initiant into the mommy club and what that would look like. I feel like would be really really fun, like a mommy hazing scene. I don't know, like
yeah,
mommy school
amazing.
201.
I mean, I love that mommy school idea, like how to be a really good mommy. I'm like
So
just
much
thinking now.
lactation I'm seeing.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I'm like, when's enrollment?
Yeah, perfect. Well, we will talk about our schedules after this. But it was so fun to chat with you. If you want to let folks know where they could find you or if there's anything else you wanted to add, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter is catgold_, and my Instagram is catgoldxx. My website is meetcatgold.com. Yeah, and like I said earlier, I'm based in Philly, but I come to New York once a month. And yeah, I sometimes will tour other cities, but that's mostly where I am.
Amazing. And I'm at mistressblunt.com, and Blunt Links has all of my socials. And yeah, it's always so fun to chat with another mommy about different styles of mommy dom domination. So thank you so much for chatting with me.